You won't believe the heart-pounding moment that sparked this entire adventure. Bella, our beloved mare, was about to give birth when the veterinarian gasped in disbelief. There were twins on the way, twins in a horse. It's almost unheard of, and that was just the beginning of the excitement at Sunset Creek Ranch. From a risky pregnancy that kept everyone on edge to a birth scene that had us all holding our breath, Bella's story has it all: suspense, hope, and a triumph against the odds. You'll find yourself cheering, worrying, and ultimately celebrating right alongside the family as they do everything possible to protect Bella Mo and her newborn foals. Curious about how it all turns out? Stick around to find out every riveting detail. You won't want to miss the extraordinary ending. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on our incredible tales and heartwarming moments. Sunset Creek Ranch was founded generations ago, a patch of wild terrain painstakingly transformed into a place of hope and prosperity. Rolling hills of tall grass extended as far as the eye could see, dotted with ancient oaks that had stood watch over the land for centuries. A clear stream meandered through the property, its waters glistening beneath the sun's rays. The ranch house, though modest, exuded warmth and history, its walls lined with photographs of past triumphs and challenges. Each framed memory told the story of a family that had dedicated themselves to the well-being of their animals and to the stewardship of the earth they loved. Before dawn, the air was often cool and fragrant, carrying hints of clover and damp soil. Horses whinnied in the pre-dawn stillness, their breath forming small puffs of vapor when the temperature dipped. Sunrise brought the ranch to life with a chorus of bird calls and the soft rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. On most mornings, ranch hands would gather at the barn, exchanging cheerful banter as they prepared for another day of feeding, mucking stalls, and caring for the livestock. This sense of community was as much a part of the ranch as the fences and paddocks. Yet beneath the idyllic surface lay challenges that tested the right family's resolve. Financial uncertainties and unpredictable weather sometimes threatened their livelihood, but time and again they persevered through hard work and an unshakable faith in their horses. Sunset Creek Ranch's reputation was rooted in the strong bonds between its people and its animals, a quality visitors often remarked upon. When confronted with adversity, they found strength in unity, forging onward with grit and determination. It was here, amid these sweeping vistas and well-worn traditions, that Bella thrived. She had been an energetic filly once, running circles around the other horses in the pasture, as if determined to greet every sunrise at full speed. Over time, Bella grew to embody the spirit of the ranch, resilient, unwavering, and gentle in the way she interacted with those who cared for her. Little did anyone suspect that this same mare would soon face a trial that would unite everyone in a struggle that tested not only Bella's endurance, but also the limits of hope, dedication, and the power of family. Under the gathering twilight one evening, Bella stood in her stall, and the ranch hands crowded around with hushed anticipation. Something momentous was about to unfold, a development that would ripple through every corner of Sunset Creek Ranch. Samuel Wright, the head of the ranch, had a rugged face weathered by years spent outdoors and a stance that revealed both authority and caution. He paced back and forth near the stable door, casting occasional glances at Bella. Inside a small makeshift examination room by the barn, Dr. Morrison, the family's trusted veterinarian, was scrutinizing Bella's most recent x-rays. The gravity in the vet's expression made Samuel's pulse quicken. A creak of the wooden floor announced Clara's arrival. At just 20 years old, she was Samuel's youngest daughter, deeply attached to Bella through hours of riding, brushing, and shared secrets whispered in the mare's ear. Samuel noticed the tension etched in Dr. Morrison's face. Finally, the vet set the x-rays aside and turned to speak. "Samuel," he said, voice subdued, "Bella is carrying twins." A single heartbeat seemed to echo in the silence. The news was staggering, because while a twin pregnancy might be cause for celebration in other species, for a mare like Bella, it spelled danger. Dr. Morrison explained that equine twins rarely survived without complications, and that the safest recommendation was typically to terminate one of the embryos to protect the mother's health. Samuel inhaled sharply, bracing a hand on the exam table. His mind flashed with memories. Bella as a spirited filly, Bella recovering from a nasty bout of colic, Bella defying expectations again and again. Could she defy the odds once more? Before he could respond, Clara spoke up in a trembling but insistent tone. "We can't just give up," she pleaded. "Bella deserves a chance to show us her strength." Dr. Morrison remained calm, his voice sympathetic but firm. "I understand your attachment to Bella," he said, looking at Clara, "but the survival rate is extremely low for both foals and their mother." Clara, however, would not be swayed, her arms crossed over her chest, jaw set in unwavering determination. She repeated that Bella had always shown remarkable resilience, citing last year's complicated foaling as an example. A pause descended, thick as syrup, while Samuel wrestled with the choice. He could feel the weight of his daughter's hope pressing against the cold practicality of the veterinarian's advice. At last, Samuel spoke, his voice subdued but decisive. "We'll give Bella the chance," he announced. "The moment it looks like her life is in real danger, we'll do what we must." Dr. Morrison nodded in acceptance, though his uncertainty remained palpable. Clara exhaled slowly, relief and trepidation playing across her features. The battle lines were drawn. Bella's pregnancy would become the focal point of Sunset Creek Ranch, an unfolding drama where every action held immense consequences. Word spread swiftly among the ranch hands. Though some agreed with Dr. Morrison's caution, others found themselves rooting for Bella, recalling times she had surprised them with her durability. Jackson, a studious young hand, scoured equine medical journals for stories of successful twin births, clinging to any optimism he could unearth. Diane, Samuel's wife, observed these developments with a practical eye, acutely aware of the financial and emotional toll that a tragedy could bring. Yet even she felt a small flame of hope. Sunset Creek Ranch transformed almost overnight. The staff and family members worked in sync, funneling their energies into Bella's care. Dr. Morrison devised a specialized diet, recommending supplements to bolster her stamina. 2 extra feedings a day were scheduled, one at midday and another late in the evening, ensuring Bella received a steady supply of nutrients. Clara made it her mission to oversee the mare's feeding regimen, often standing beside Bella, whispering encouragement as she gently stroked the mare's neck. Early one morning, Clara noticed Bella standing oddly still in her stall, head hung low. Alarmed, she called Dr. Morrison, and he discovered Bella was already showing signs of unusual fatigue. The strain of carrying twins was manifesting earlier than expected. "We'll need to limit her activity," the vet advised, "to the absolute minimum. No more than a few minutes of gentle walking each day." Samuel frowned, aware of how Bella loved her daily strolls around the pasture. But he nodded in agreement. There was no room for risk now. Yet tension lay thick over the ranch. Samuel slept less and less, often pacing the barn or gazing at the star-filled sky with a heavy heart. He questioned whether his decision to proceed with the twin pregnancy was guided by reason or desperation to believe in a miracle. In these silent hours, he remembered his late father's words about ranching, requiring both calculation and compassion. Bella's situation demanded both, but the scale felt precariously tipped. The first real crisis struck on a bright, cloudless afternoon when Clara decided that a short walk would do Bella good. At first, all seemed fine. Bella ambled gently behind the barn, enjoying a soft breeze. Then a startled rabbit bolted from the nearby brush. Bella reared slightly, and the weight of her abdomen upset her balance. She slipped on wet ground and went down heavily. Clara's scream brought Samuel and Jackson running, hearts thudding in fear. Dr. Morrison arrived soon after, checking Bella with methodical care. Though there were no broken bones, he cautioned that another incident like this could be devastating. The ranch sank into collective apprehension. Even Clara, whose faith in Bella was boundless, wrestled with her fears, her confidence shaken by how close they had come to tragedy. From that day forward, every moment of Bella's routine was meticulously orchestrated. Jackson took great care in mucking out her stall, ensuring that the floor was level and free of hazards. Clara or Diane always accompanied Bella if the mare needed even the shortest walk, each movement a delicate ballet. Diane brewed herbal concoctions reputed to aid equine digestion and nerve health, handing steaming cups to Clara to bring to Bella in the early morning hours. Still, Bella's appetite waned. The veterinarian recommended new feed mixes and vitamin supplements, but the mare would often nibble half-heartedly and then turn away. Clara spent hours by Bella's side, coaxing her to take one more bite. Each time Bella refused, dread gripped Clara's stomach, as if the mare's diminishing strength were a direct reflection of Clara's own hope slipping away. Amid these daily struggles, the family debated. At dinner, tension crackled in the air. Samuel worried aloud that they were merely prolonging the inevitable, while Diane sometimes questioned whether they had been too quick to listen to Clara's passionate defense of Bella's chances. Clara, in turn, defended her stance with unwavering resolve. Bella has always pulled through, she insisted. Don't count her out. Samuel rarely challenged his daughter openly, but the weariness in his eyes spoke volumes. Nighttime brought its own kind of vigil. The ranch hands rotated watch by Bella's stall, keeping an eye and ear out for any sign that labor might start prematurely or that Bella was in distress. On some nights, Bella's soft whinnies woke Clara, who would stumble down to the barn to soothe the mare with gentle strokes. The scent of hay and horse lingered on Clara's clothes, but she wore it like a badge of honor, determined to see Bella through. One starlit night, a worried hush overtook the barn. Bella lay down, groaning. Clara, half asleep, jolted awake and rushed to the stall. Dr. Morrison was called. His examination revealed no immediate emergencies, but he warned that Bella's body was beginning to buckle under the strain. "We need more frequent checkups," he said gravely, adjusting his glasses. "And once these foals are born, if they even make it to term, the challenges won't end." Some of the ranch hands, once uncertain, now became fervent supporters of Bella's cause. They too recalled her past feats, how she had outrun her own ailments or faced them head-on with spirit to spare. Each day she carried the twin pregnancy was viewed as a small victory, fueling a cautious optimism. At the same time, a collective sigh of relief would only come when the foals were born healthy and Bella remained safe. It was a precarious balance of faith and pragmatism, one the Wright family had to navigate with every step they took. At last, Bella's condition stabilized somewhat. Dr. Morrison arrived one morning with portable ultrasound equipment, determined to examine the foals. Clara hovered near Bella's flank, gently stroking the mare, while the veterinarian's assistant prepared the machine. Everyone in the stable went quiet, the flicker of hope merging with a lingering sense of dread. The screen showed two distinct shapes. Even as Dr. Morrison frowned at the smaller of the two, he confirmed both were still alive. Clara let out a sigh that seemed to uncoil all her pent-up worries, at least for the moment. Samuel stood off to one side, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. A spark of renewed resolve flickered in his gaze. Sunset Creek Ranch found a rhythm focused on Bella's care. Her stall became a sanctuary, spruced up with fresh flowers that Clara picked from the fields to brighten the space. Soft blankets were spread for Bella to lie down on, and her water buckets were changed more often than ever before. Jackson and Diane took turns sitting in a chair near Bella's stall through the night, ensuring she never struggled alone. The ranch carried on with its usual chores, feeding other horses, tending cattle, repairing fences, but every lull in activity seemed to send someone scurrying back to check on Bella. In those weeks, Bella's coat lost much of its earlier shine, but her eyes retained a quiet determination. She still allowed Clara to brush her mane, a slow, gentle ritual that seemed to soothe both mare and caretaker alike. Samuel sometimes joined them, standing silently at Bella's other side. Words felt unnecessary. The bond between father, daughter, and horse had transcended the need for conversation. One warm afternoon after a routine checkup, Dr. Morrison turned to Samuel. "She's doing about as well as we can hope for, given the circumstances," he acknowledged, pushing up the brim of his hat. "But the real challenge will come when she actually goes into labor." His gaze drifted to Bella, and a flicker of respect lit his eyes. "She's a fighter, no doubt. Let's hope that counts for everything." Even the ranch hands who had originally opposed continuing the pregnancy had begun to root quietly for Bella. Occasionally, they'd pause by her stall, tipping their hats in a subtle display of solidarity. Clara noticed these small gestures, each one adding a spark of courage to her heart. As Bella's belly grew, so did the sense of unity at Sunset Creek Ranch. Despite lingering fears, the family and workers poured their efforts into ensuring Bella would have every advantage when the pivotal moment arrived. Still, no one could shake the awareness that twin births rarely ended in a storybook fashion. Weeks slipped by, punctuated by small triumphs and unnerving setbacks. Bella's appetite improved slightly, and on good days she seemed more alert, raising her head to neigh softly in greeting when Clara or Jackson approached. The ranch hands, including Jackson, tracked her weight gain meticulously, adjusting her feed whenever Dr. Morrison recommended it. They celebrated minor victories, like her completing a full meal or managing a brief supervised walk without stumbling. By the time dawn broke on a humid morning, Bella's body showed undeniable signs of labor. Clara, sensitive to Bella's moods, awoke with a start before sunrise, compelled to check the stable. She found Bella pacing, the mare's sides trembling. The rest of the household was roused in short order. Samuel threw on his boots, Diane hurriedly tied her robe, and Jackson fetched Dr. Morrison. A hush fell as they converged in the barn, hearts pounding. Dr. Morrison arrived and set up his equipment, instructing everyone to speak quietly and give Bella space. Labor in horses can progress quickly or stretch interminably, and with twins on the way, the risks multiplied. Bella's ears pinned back in discomfort, her nostrils flaring. Clara stood by her head, stroking gently and murmuring assurances, even though her own heart felt like it might burst from her chest. An hour crawled by, then two. Bella's flanks rippled with contractions, each more forceful than the last. Finally, Dr. Morrison announced that the first foal was making its way into position. Sweat beaded on Bella's coat, and Clara tried to quell her trembling as she held the mare's halter. A series of strained groans followed, resonating through the stable and sending chills down everyone's spine. Then, with a mighty push and Dr. Morrison's skilled guidance, the first foal was born, small, wet, and vulnerable. A collective gasp sounded. Dr. Morrison quickly cleared the newborn's airway, towels at the ready. "It's a colt," he said, relief and awe lacing his words. The foal let out a tremulous whinny, legs wobbling as it tried to push itself upright. Clara, tears blurring her vision, bent down to brush a gentle hand across the colt's slick coat. "Welcome, Aries," she whispered, the name forming in her mind like a beacon of resilience. There was no time to dwell on joy, however. Bella still heaved with contractions, an urgent reminder that another foal was on the way. The next part could be even more perilous, given how rare twin equine births were. Everyone in the barn braced themselves for another ordeal. Diane clasped her hands together, silently praying. Samuel stood at a cautious distance, arms rigid at his sides, prepared for the worst while hoping for the impossible. Soon Bella let out a painful whinny, her muscles contracting again. The minutes stretched into an excruciating wait. Aries, still drying from the birth, lay curled in the straw, occasionally twitching his spindly legs. Clara took fleeting glances at him, her heart surging with protective love. But she knew the second foal demanded their collective focus now. Dr. Morrison kneeled by Bella's hindquarters, guiding the filly into the world. Sweat glistened on his brow, and his assistant stood ready with sterile cloths and warming blankets. One push, then another. Bella gave everything she had left, her dark eyes wide with exertion. At last, a petite filly emerged. Dr. Morrison repeated his careful routine, and a breath of relief escaped his lips when the filly let out a faint, quivering whimper. Clara exhaled a shaky sob, overcome by a swirl of gratitude and disbelief. She bent low, pressing a gentle kiss to the filly's muzzle. "Lyra," she whispered, choosing a name that evoked grace and quiet power. While the filly was noticeably smaller than Aries, she was alive. Samuel moved closer, placing a hesitant hand on Bella's side in a silent offering of support. Even Diane, tears glinting in her eyes, crouched down to observe the second miracle. Yet the barn's jubilation was tempered by caution. Dr. Morrison insisted on examining both foals immediately. Aries wriggled with surprising vigor, his bright eyes squinting in the lantern light. But Lyra's breathing was shallow. The vet's stethoscope hovered over the filly's chest, and the prolonged silence stretched every nerve thin. Finally, he nodded once, confirming Lyra's heart was steady, if not robust. "She'll need extra care," he warned, "but there's reason to hope." Bella, utterly drained, lay in the straw, sides rising and falling as she panted heavily. Clara placed her hand on Bella's neck, murmuring words of comfort. The mare turned her head weakly, offering a soft nicker as if to acknowledge the efforts of everyone who had believed in her. Though exhausted, Bella began to nuzzle Aries, then Lyra, nudging the filly to nurse. A collective wave of affection swept through the stable. The first hours after birth were critical. Aries was quick to find Bella's milk, wobbling to his feet in a clumsy show of determination. Lyra took more time. Clara and Dr. Morrison guided the filly, coaxing her to latch on. When Lyra finally succeeded, Clara nearly broke into tears of joy. Samuel, meanwhile, kept one hand on the stall door, as though bracing himself should anything go wrong. Despite his stoic exterior, relief flickered in his gaze each time he glanced at the newborns. Night fell, and Sunset Creek Ranch exhaled a collective sigh that felt years in the making. Word of Bella's successful delivery of twins spread among the ranch hands, who slipped into the stable to catch glimpses of the tiny foals. Some were in awe, others openly admitted their earlier skepticism had been shattered. In hushed voices, they marveled at Bella's determination. A modest celebration was in order. Diane prepared a hearty stew, warm biscuits, and cobbler for dessert. The ranch family and a few close workers gathered around the long wooden table in the ranch house, the air buzzing with weary excitement. Jackson recounted every detail of the burst with dramatic flair, much to the amusement of those present. Clara laughed along, though tears still shimmered at the corners of her eyes, the tension of the day not fully released. After the meal, Samuel raised a simple toast. "To Bella," he said softly, lifting his glass, "and to Aries and Lyra. May they grow strong, and may Bella recover swiftly." The sound of clinking glassware echoed in the dining room, carrying with it a poignant mix of hope and thanksgiving. Outside, the moon illuminated the paddocks and barns, bathing the ranch in silvery light, but no one was under any illusion that the worst was behind them. Equine twins posed ongoing challenges even after birth. Bella's body had been pushed to its limits, and the foals would require vigilant monitoring. Aries, though healthy for now, could face hidden complications. Lyra, smaller and more fragile, needed extra nutrition and support. Dr. Morrison cautioned that the coming weeks would demand everyone's keen attention. True to that warning, the days became a marathon of care. Clara barely left the stable, ensuring both foals nursed frequently and helping Bella move around without straining herself. Aries revealed himself to be an adventurous spirit, trotting in crooked circles around his mother, his spindly legs tripping over bits of straw. Lyra was more cautious, peering at the world with large inquisitive eyes. She observed Aries's antics, sometimes following him, other times waiting as though she wanted to process everything before diving in. Bella watched them with a weariness that didn't dampen her maternal devotion. Sunrise often found Clara dozing in a chair near the stall, only to be stirred by the soft whicker of a hungry foal. Jackson updated his notebook with notes on feeding times, the foal's weight, and Bella's health indicators. The ranch routine adapted to this new reality. Daily chores were still done, but no hour passed without someone checking on Bella's little family. Even visitors arriving for business were greeted with an apologetic explanation of why everyone seemed preoccupied. Sunset Creek Ranch, once a picture of balanced efficiency, had become singularly focused on keeping Bella, Aries, and Lyra on a steady road to health. As if the ranch's resources weren't already stretched thin, trouble soon surfaced in the form of a regional outbreak of equine influenza. The first hint came when Duke, one of the older horses, started coughing persistently and refused his feed. Alarm bells rang in Samuel's mind. He isolated Duke immediately and called Dr. Morrison, who confirmed the dreaded flu had taken hold. Fear rippled across the ranch. This illness could devastate young foals with undeveloped immune systems. And Bella, already compromised from the twin pregnancy, was highly vulnerable. Samuel convened a meeting in the barn, seriousness etched into every line of his face. Dr. Morrison laid out a plan. Vaccinate and boost the entire herd, ramp up hygiene protocols, and restrict all non-essential visitors. Anyone stepping onto ranch property had to disinfect boots and clothing. Clara's concern focused like a laser on Aries and Lyra. The thought of either foal falling ill stirred her fiercest protective instincts. She covered her mouth and nose with a cloth whenever near them, while Jackson doubled his note-taking, tracking every sign of potential illness. Diane, usually the comforting figure, now wore a pinched expression, working long hours to sanitize surfaces and supply herbs rumored to help ward off infection. For a while, it seemed as though their precautions were paying off. Then, one chilly morning, Aries refused his usual meal. Typically brimming with energy, the colt was lethargic, his head low. Clara's heart plummeted, and she beckoned Dr. Morrison with urgency. Aries had developed a mild fever, though no other obvious symptoms presented themselves yet. Even so, Dr. Morrison took no chances. Medications were administered, and the colt was kept under constant watch. Night stretched into an anxious vigil. Bella paced, sensing her colt's distress. Lyra hovered near her brother, nuzzling him as if encouraging him to stay strong. Clara barely left the stall, occasionally dozing against the wooden boards. Jackson brought her food, reminding her to keep her own energy up. Each hour without worsening symptoms felt like a small victory. At last, Aries's fever subsided, and he began to nibble on hay again. Dr. Morrison and Samuel exchanged relieved smiles. The scare passed, leaving behind a ranch community more tightly knit and more aware of the fragility of life under their care. Duke recovered as well, though he required an extended period of quarantine. As the influenza threat waned, the ranch gradually returned to a guarded normal, grateful that Bella and the foals had avoided a more harrowing encounter with the virus. In the midst of all this, a local journalist's photograph of Bella standing protectively over Aries and Lyra went viral, capturing hearts across social media. Offers for interviews and visits poured in, but Samuel remained cautious, reluctant to further stress the already overtaxed mare and her newborn twins. The ranch found itself balancing a fine line between sharing an uplifting story and preserving the peace Bella so desperately needed. Despite a surge in outside interest, daily life at Sunset Creek Ranch settled into a staid, if demanding, routine. Aries and Lyra grew with each passing day, their distinct personalities emerging more vividly. Aries was irrepressible, always eager to explore beyond the stall's confines the moment anyone left the door ajar. He tested his gangly legs at every turn, sometimes careening into piles of straw or bumping into Bella, who would gently correct him with a nudge. Lyra remained the observer, often taking a moment to watch Aries attempt a new stunt before deciding whether to copy him. Bella, while still regaining strength, never neglected her responsibilities as a mother. She nudged Aries back from potentially unsafe escapades and offered Lyra soft encouragement whenever the filly hesitated. Dr. Morrison stopped by frequently for checkups, listening to Bella's heart, taking note of the foal's lung sounds, and documenting weight gains. Each visit carried a sense of relief as he confirmed they were progressing as well as anyone could hope. The ranch hands developed a fondness for the twins, even those who had once questioned the wisdom of keeping them. Some mornings, a pair of them would lean on the stall door, hats in hand, just to watch the foals tussle playfully. Jackson, growing ever more invested, compiled data on Aries and Lyra's development that he hoped might be useful for future research on equine twin care. He spent hours poring over academic articles, comparing them to his meticulous records. As the twins became more stable, the ranch slowly eased the strict isolation measures. Bella was allowed brief supervised outings in a small paddock near the barn. Clara led her carefully, Aries and Lyra trotting close by. It was during one such outing that a group of visiting veterinary researchers arrived, intrigued by the miracle twins, as people had begun to call them. The scientists observed from a respectful distance, taking photos and notes. Samuel watched them warily, but Dr. Morrison assured him that their studies could shed light on improving mare and foal care in similar high-risk pregnancies. One golden afternoon, Claire and Samuel stood by the paddock fence, sharing a rare moment of reflection. Aries raced around the enclosure, delighting in the simple sensation of movement, while Lyra pranced a few steps behind, more measured yet equally captivated by the wide sky above. Bella watched them both, her ears swiveling to track their playful whinnies. Samuel placed a hand on Clara's shoulder, clearing his throat as if searching for words. "I doubted this so many times," he said quietly, "but seeing them now makes me think maybe miracles are real." Clara smiled, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. She didn't respond with words. The thriving sight of Aries, Lyra, and Bella spoke volumes on its own. Over time, the brush with equine influenza faded into a memory, and life on the ranch found a newfound sense of equilibrium. Diane introduced new dishes at mealtime, trying to coax a hearty appetite back into Bella, who still showed occasional signs of lethargy. Jackson took pride in helping weigh Aries and Lyra, cheering when the scale reflected healthy gains. Other chores around the ranch resumed their usual importance: fence mending, feed deliveries, cattle checks. But Bella and the foals remained at the heart of every conversation. As the weeks passed, Aries and Lyra became increasingly curious about their surroundings. Aries tested boundaries, nudging at gates and attempting to climb small obstacles. Lyra, more cautious, carefully evaluated each scenario before taking a step forward. The sibling contrast was apparent to anyone observing them, and it filled Clara with pride. She loved seeing how Aries' boldness could spur Lyra to try new things, while Lyra's thoughtful approach often kept Aries from barreling straight into trouble. Stories about Bella and her twins continued circulating. Journalists wrote features in local newspapers, and online platforms buzzed with excitement over the improbable success story. Calls from out-of-state news outlets became more frequent. Samuel allowed a carefully managed trickle of media, ensuring Bella's well-being always took precedence. He was no publicity hound, and the glare of cameras could rattle even the calmest horse, let alone one still recovering from a high-risk pregnancy. Amid the bustle, Morrison encouraged the Wright family to consider sharing their experiences in a more structured way, perhaps a detailed case study that could help other veterinarians and horse owners. He pointed out that Bella's triumph wasn't just a feel-good story, it was a wealth of valuable data on equine prenatal care, nutrition, and the complexities of birthing twins. Samuel mulled it over. Although not one for writing, he recognized the potential benefit. Maybe someone else could avoid some of the uncertainty and fear they'd faced. One mild afternoon with the sun dipping toward the horizon, the ranch staff gathered for a communal rest after finishing the day's chores. Clara lounged on a bale of hay, Aries nuzzling her boots while Lyra stood nearby, watchful and poised. Bella grazed contentedly in a corner, tail flicking at the occasional fly. Samuel and Diane sat close, exchanging contented smiles. A gentle breeze swept through the open barn doors, carrying with it the scents of grass and horse. Samuel looked around, taking in the comforting tableau. Months earlier, he had feared catastrophic loss at every turn. Now he beheld a scene brimming with vitality and promise. Bella had defied the most daunting odds, and her offspring, Aries and Lyra, were on their way to becoming strong young horses. The sense of relief that enveloped them was tempered by a lasting awe for all they had endured and overcome. No one would claim that the path had been smooth or that the dangers were permanently gone. Equine twins remained susceptible to hidden complications, and Bella, despite her remarkable recuperation, would likely carry the stress of her ordeal in subtle ways for the rest of her life. Yet at Sunset Creek Ranch, a spirit of optimism prevailed. Each sunrise found Aries chasing after his own shadow, testing the bounds of speed his wobbly legs could handle. Lyra, ever the patient observer, followed in her brother's wake, asserting her own gentle brand of courage whenever the moment felt right. Visitors who arrived at the ranch found a family bonded more tightly than ever by their shared trials. Diane's nurturing presence extended beyond the kitchen. She made sure every ranch hand felt supported and every horse, not just Bella and her foals, received the best care possible. Jackson began collating his careful notes for Dr. Morrison, even exploring the idea of publishing a brief article in a veterinary journal under the vet's guidance. It was a welcome surprise to discover that the knowledge they had gained through anxiety and vigilance might prove beneficial to others. Clara, for her part, continued her close watch on Bella and the foals, though her apprehension had mellowed into a calmer guardianship. The shock and fear of those early days had settled into a lasting respect for the fragile dance between life and loss that every rancher must face. She often paused to marvel at Bella's quiet strength. The mare seemed fully aware of her role, guiding Aries and Lyra with nudges and low whinnies that spoke volumes about motherly devotion. One evening, as the sun cast long shadows across the paddocks, Samuel walked beside Clara near Bella's stall. The foals dozed in a warm patch of leftover daylight. "I'm proud of you," he said softly, voice catching in his throat. "You believed in Bella when I wavered, and you never lost faith." Clara looked up at her father, emotion blooming in her chest. She thought of all the midnight vigils, the tears, the near disasters. "I think Bella taught me as much as I helped her," she answered quietly. They leaned on the stall door, watching Bella rest. The mare's once dull coat now had a soft sheen in the fading light, and her eyes conveyed an unspoken gratitude. Beneath the hush, Aries stirred, flicking his tail in a dream. Lyra twitched an ear, pressing closer against Bella. There in that moment, father and daughter realized how deeply the ranch's heart had been tested and ultimately transformed. A new chapter had begun at Sunset Creek Ranch, one where hope thrived even in the face of daunting odds. Looking back, Bella's journey is a testament to resilience, teamwork, and the profound bond that forms when hope collides with determination. Through every challenge, exhaustion, accidents, health scares, she showed us that persistence can work miracles, especially when backed by genuine care. Watching Aries and Lyra grow stronger day by day felt like witnessing a promise fulfilled. From vulnerable newborns to playful foals ready to explore the world. I personally feel inspired by the courage Bella displayed, and I hope her story reminds all of us that even in daunting circumstances, support and belief can make all the difference. If you found meaning or encouragement here, please let us know in the comments below. Your perspectives and experiences matter. We'd love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Thank you for sharing in this journey, and may Bella's story light a spark of hope in you as well.